Hi, it's Liz Thompson with Sew with Liz, and I have a video today showing you how to make an embroidered sleep mask or eye mask. That's done all in the hoop, and all you have to do is a teeny little bit of hand sewing at the end. So stick with me and see what I have up my sleeve for you today. And you will see that I have already stitched a outline. That is my placement line in the hoop. What I have here is a tear away stabilizer because I do want to tear that away from the back of my embroidery before I complete the project. As you've probably guessed, it's a sleep mask or an eye mask. And I don't know about you, but I really like to use these. I have my hubby likes to sleep a bit later than me, and so sometimes he's still got the light on, and I find having a sleep mask really helps me to fall asleep because the light bothers me. Okay, so how do we make this sleep mask, and where did I get the design? This is actually a design from, I believe it's a company called Pickle Pie Designs, and I downloaded it as a freebie from the Creative Machine Embroidery magazine many years ago. They usually offer freebies in every issue of their magazine, and then you can get those for a short period of time. Thereafter, you need to buy the design from the company. So it would be my guess that this eye mask or sleep mask design would still be available from Pickle Pie Designs. So as I say, we have got the placement line stitched already. That tells me where to place my fabric and so on. I have a red polyester embroidery thread in my needle, and I have a matching red thread in my bobbin because I'm going to be using red fabric for my mask. The very first thing I want to do is I want to lay a piece of cutaway stabilizer on top of that line. And I then also am going to lay a double layer. Do you see that? A double layer of red shiny fabric. Now, I didn't have any red satin. Red satin would have been truly luxurious. But I do have a red sort of lingerie fabric, a sort of very thin duoplex for bra making. And so I used 2 layers of this because I just thought it would give me better coverage from the light. And that's also why I used the cutaway stabilizer. Cutaway being used because I want it to stay there as opposed to the tear away, which I will tear off the back of the embroidery before I finish the project. The cutaway is nice and soft. I won't be feeling it against my skin, but it's nice and soft within the mask, so it won't make the mask stiff, which is obviously not what we want. So now I'm going to start stitching color number 2, and I could have taped this fabric and stabilizer down, but I chose to just lay them there, which is why I'm going fairly slowly for this color number 2 or first step of layering my fabrics. And I'm just making sure, keeping my fingers out of the way of the needle, but making sure that I don't get any wrinkles as we go. Now, if you prefer, you can use something like embroidery tape. This is very like surgical tape. This product happens to be a Kimberbell product that I bought from my local wholesaler. Many quilt stores do stock it, and it is fairly readily available. Okay, so the next thing is the eyelashes. There are some rather nice eyelashes showing closed eyes, and I'm just wondering if a little more light on the subject might be better. I don't think that it really makes a huge amount of difference. Maybe it does. And so I'm going to speed it up now because we don't really have to have it going so very slowly anymore because the fabric is being held in place by that second step. So while the eyelashes are stitching out, which is probably the longest part of the whole project, I'm going to talk a little bit about needles and thread. I changed the needle and put a red tip needle in, a Janome red tip needle. The reason for that is because it has a large eye. It's a size 14 needle and it has a large eye, and I find it quite successful for embroidery. You can, of course, use a universal needle or an embroidery needle, whatever works for you with your embroidery. So that is what I put into the okay, so now what I'm going to have to do is stop and rethread because my needle came unthreaded. So let me just do that. It's really quite quick and easy. I always hold the thread at the top and then thread my needle, and away we go again with the second eyelash of my two. And so as regards needles, you can use what you're most comfortable with, and I find that it often depends on the fabric you're using. So this fabric is a fairly tightly woven fabric. So another needle that you could have used would have been maybe a Microtex needle or an embroidery needle. I don't have a huge supply of every different type of a needle under the sun. So sometimes I make do with what I've got, and maybe just a plain regular universal needle will work for you. If you find that your stitching is not looking very good, or you find that you're getting like little loops on the top of your stitching, that could be that your needle is not doing the job that it needs to do to penetrate your fabric and pick up the bobbin thread. In which case, it's not the machine that's at fault, it's not you that's at fault, it's just simply a matter of trying a different needle type. And sometimes I experiment with 2 or 3 different needles before I find the one that I need. So the next color that's going to stitch is the elastic. So I have this elastic that I found in a fabric recycling store that opens a couple of times a week, and I don't really know what it's for, but it's quite dense. It's kind of like rubbery rather than the sort of cotton elastic that we're more used to, or the polyester covered elastic. But I like it for a sleep mask because it's not sticky or gluey, but it kind of adheres to my hair. And so I don't find that the sleep mask comes off my head during the night. Most mornings I wake up and the sleep mask is still there. So I kind of quite like this elastic, and as I say, I picked it up for a real bargain. I think it was maybe 50 cents or $1 for a hank of this elastic. Obviously, from the place where I get it, it's a fabric notion recycling. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the machine when it gets over to the other side, because I want to make sure that my elastic is not twisted, and I want to put it in the same position or height on the side of the sleep mask as the first one. Okay, so there we have it, and I can trim that little thread there, and I can trim this little thread here. And now you will notice that I have kind of put this elastic in the middle of the sleep mask, and this time I'm actually going to put a little piece of embroidery tape to hold it in place so that it doesn't scooch out of the way. And now what I'm going to do is I have a piece of red minky. This is the fabric that's going to be on the back of the mask, and this will be what will be against my skin. And I particularly like the feel of minky because it is so lovely and soft. And so I am going to position that over the top of my placement line that I originally did, that first line of stitching forming the outline of the face mask. And now I am going to stitch. Once again, as I said earlier, I could whoops, it's not coming off properly. Let's just see what's happening here. We often have little troubleshooting things like this. I'm actually just going to check my bobbin as well, because sometimes the problem arises actually at the bobbin, and I actually think that's what happened here. I think that the thread at the beginning of the winding of the bobbin kind of came unstuck and tangled with the thread coming off the bobbin. So let's rethread up the bobbin and we should be good to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-adhere the hoop to the machine, and I'm actually going to back up a few stitches, and I need to also rethread my needle. And away we go again. Like I was saying when we had this little mishap, small mishap, I said that what we could have done was use some of that embroidery tape to tape down this minky, but I don't have an inexhaustible supply of this embroidery tape, so I'm trying to be frugal. I'm making sure I keep my hands out of the way, but I'm just gently holding the minky so that it doesn't bunch or wrinkle, because you don't want that on the back of the embroidery. So there we are. I am actually finished with that particular eye patch or eye mask. Now I'm going to use a function I have on my machine which brings my hoop forward. I'm not actually going to take it out of the hoop at this stage, because I'm going to stitch another 2 sleep masks, because then that way I've used all my stabilizer on this hoop. I could have used a smaller hoop and maybe turned that vertically in a smaller hoop if my hoop wasn't wide enough. But I find that I like to make a batch of these at once, and I use them as gifts for friends, or I have a stash of them in my bedside table drawer. So I will return to the video once the other 2 have been stitched, and I will then show you what you do to remove this from the hoop. Okay, so here I am back again, Liz with Sew with Liz, and I am showing you rather a mess. This is what I did after I unhooped the eye masks or sleep masks that I had finished embroidering. I embroidered all 3 of them, and this would ordinarily end up in the landfill. All right, but I have a lovely solution. I don't put it into my garbage bin and send it to the landfill anymore. I have a friend who is involved in a charity project where they collect all those little bits and pieces. Most of them are quilters, and they collect all those little scraps and they fill pillows with the scraps, and those pillows go to various homeless organizations to distribute to homeless people for pillows. So what did I do after I had trimmed away? Well, let's show you how I trimmed away. All right, there's a little spot that I missed. So let's just trim away that little bit of red minky there. And then let's show you, I left the last little bit to show you that I don't think it's necessary to clip these seams, you know, clip them in like that, because I am cutting away my seam allowance and I'm making it fairly small, somewhere around 1/8 of an inch. And because of that, I find that it's more than adequate. I don't need to clip because these curves are not so acute that it's going to need clipping. All right, so what next? All right, this looks like it's been sewn all the way through, but actually it hasn't. There is a little hole in the top of the sleep mask, and what you're going to do is you are going to turn that sleep mask out to the right side and push with your fingers. You can certainly use a chopstick or something to poke the edges if you wanted to. I have done it once or twice, but I found it's not really strictly necessary. Is you could go to your sewing machine and you could do a little top stitch around the edge if you wish. All right, I see I have one lone thread sitting there, so we'll snip that off. And there is my tape, embroidery tape that I used earlier. So I'm going to take that off, and there is my elastic for my sleep mask. The only thing left to do is to sew closed that little opening. And you can see exactly where you need to do it because of the stitching. And then I usually just tuck in a little bit of the minky, and I clip it or pin it, and then sew it closed by hand. If you were going to do a top stitching around the edge of your sleep mask, you wouldn't need to do some hand sewing there because that would hold it in place, close the opening. And you will notice that I did not do any eyelashes on this sleep mask. I just made it plain, and it's got the red minky on the back. All right, this one was the third one that I did, and I did it a little bit differently to that first one. I changed my thread color to a creamy white, and I had a lovely off-white satin and a rather luxurious double-sided minky for the back of the sleep mask. And once again, all that remains for me to do is to slip stitch that closed. Now I do want to mention that this is the other side before it's been turned out, and it looks like I've left stabilizer there, but no, that is the cutaway stabilizer, which is washable and will remain in the eye mask to give a little bit more of a layer against the light. I found when I first started making these sleep masks in pretty soft pinks and whites, the light still came through them because the fabric was pale, which is why I started switching to a darker fabric, but I found that the cutaway stabilizer really works nicely. And so I did tear away the tearaway, and that's already in the paper recycling, but now this one has got the cutaway. All of them, in fact, have the cutaway. All right, so I do hope that you enjoyed that little project. If you have difficulty getting hold of a suitable eye mask or sleep mask design, there are many embroidery companies that will have something similar to what I've just shown you. I know for sure if you go to Pickle Pie Designs, they probably have one. But as I say, if you have some difficulty, just drop a comment below this video, and I'll see what I can do to provide you with some links or some direction of where to find it. Obviously, if you are a digitizer, it is super simple and easy to digitize your own sleep mask. And there will be videos and blog posts and things like that online that I can direct you to if you'd like to digitize your very own sleep mask. Just to mention that I have a website. It's called www.sewwithliz.com, and I have classes that I teach that you can register for. I have embroidery thread, I have books, magazines, and some fabric. So do pay a visit to my website. I'd love to have you visit, and of course buy if you find something that you'd like. I also have a blog where I give fairly in-depth posts on various sewing topics, and I will certainly do a blog post on this eye mask, although you have seen it step by step. But I like to offer it in two formats because some people prefer the video format, some people prefer the written with pictures, photograph format. So I do try to cater for all different types of learning methods. I do also have a Pinterest page, a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and I have a Facebook group, which you are very welcome to join, and that is called Sew with Liz Thompson. And it is an open group. You can just join, and I'm hoping that you will share on that Facebook group the things that you make, do some show and tell, because we all love to see what each other have made. And if you have questions, perhaps about projects that are arising, if you want to do the sleep mask once again and you can't find a suitable design, you can certainly go to my Facebook group and ask there, and I will share some links there as well as on my YouTube channel. So I do hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon.